with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. He drove a faded Navy Silverado with a cracked dashboard mount and a gym bag permanently living in the back seat. Her friends called him Maintenance Marcus at their dinner parties, and she never corrected them. He wore Carhartt jackets to Sunday suppers and brought store-brand sodas when they hosted, and the women in her circle accepted this with the patient tolerance one extends to a reliable but unimpressive piece of furniture. What none of them knew, what Denise had never once asked about, in 11 years of marriage, not during tax season, not when his phone rang at hours she assumed were irregular, was that the holding company bearing his grandmother's middle name, Elaine Capital Group LLC, controlled a portfolio of logistics infrastructure contracts worth $1.4 billion. That Sunday, standing in Denise's mother's kitchen in an apron that read Grill Sergeant, filling plastic cups with fruit punch while her cousins laughed in the living room, Marcus poured and said nothing, and watched and remembered everything. What happened at that party, what he overheard behind the pantry door while her mother thought he was refilling the ice, would set into motion a reckoning that would leave Denise, her mother, and the man she had been building a second life with for 9 months, wondering how they had so badly misread a man who had spent a decade letting them. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from, and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The morning of the party had started the way most Sunday mornings did. Marcus was up before 5, standing in the garage he had converted into a workshop, sanding the underside of a walnut dining table he was building for no particular reason except that he needed his hands to be busy when his mind was working. His grandmother used to say, standing over him in her Charlotte kitchen, with her hands dusted in flour, "A quiet man who keeps his hands moving never runs out of patience." He had been maybe 9 years old when she said it, but he had filed it away in the same careful drawer where he kept everything else worth keeping. The table was for no one. That was the point. He built things sometimes just to know he still could, just to feel the grain of something real beneath his palms and know that the work was honest, whatever else might not be. The garage smelled like sawdust and machine oil, and the single bare bulb above the workbench threw a warm yellow circle across the floor. His other phone, the one registered to the holding company's operations line, sat face down in the locked drawer beneath the workbench. It had always been there. Denise had never asked about the drawer. He heard her moving upstairs around 6:30. He wiped the sawdust from his hands and went inside and started the coffee, and she appeared in the kitchen doorway in a silk robe, phone already in hand, already typing. "Mama wants us there by noon," she said, without looking up. "She needs help setting up." "I'll be ready," Marcus said. She glanced at his hands, at the fine pale dust still tracing the lines of his knuckles. "Can you wear something nice?" "Not the Carhartts." He poured her a cup and set it on the counter beside her. "Sure." She took the cup and went back upstairs. He stood at the counter and looked out the window at the yard. The Japanese maple he had planted the first spring they lived there, now thick-trunked and spreading, its leaves going amber at the edges. He had planted it the week after his grandmother passed. He had told Denise it was just a tree he liked. He had met Denise at a logistics conference in Atlanta. She was in marketing for a regional distribution company. She wore a red blazer and laughed too loud at the panel jokes and argued with the moderator about last-mile delivery projections in a way that Marcus had found genuinely impressive. He had been 30 years old. He had been careful about his life, careful about his work, and not particularly careful about his heart. And she had walked right through the gap. He had not told her the scope of what he ran. He had told her about the company, that he owned one, that it did logistics work, that he traveled sometimes for it. She had not asked questions that required precise answers, and he had not offered them. It had not seemed dishonest. It had seemed like the early stages of something, before you knew what it was going to require from you. By the third year, he understood she had no interest in the details of his work. She was interested in his steadiness, his usefulness, his presence as a counterweight to the drama that moved through her family like weather. He had tried to grow past that understanding. He had tried for a long time. The apron was her mother's idea. Bernice had handed it to him at the door with the flat satisfaction of a woman who had made a decision before anyone arrived, and Marcus had tied it on without expression. Her cousin Deshawn had laughed from the couch. "Maintenance Marcus out here grillin'." He had said nothing. But it was not the apron that mattered. The apron was just the occasion. What mattered was what he heard at 2:47 in the afternoon, when he went to the pantry for more napkins and the door was not quite closed, and Bernice and Denise were in the kitchen not 3 feet away. He heard his name first, then a number, then a man's name he recognized. He stood completely still. His hand rested on the doorframe. A package of paper napkins was in his left hand. Through the gap in the door, he could see the edge of the kitchen counter and Denise's back, shoulders slightly turned. "Raymond says she's ready to sign off by the end of the month," Bernice was saying. She had the low, careful voice of a woman who believed walls had no ears. "If Marcus finds out before, he won't find out," Denise said. "He's been filing our taxes joint for 3 years, Mama. He's not going to notice 80-something thousand. There was a pause. The refrigerator hummed. "Raymond's going to want a timeline," Bernice said. "Tell Raymond he'll have one. Marcus doesn't read statements. He's not built like that." Marcus set the napkins down on the pantry shelf, quietly, with both hands, the way a man sets down something breakable he has decided he does not need to carry any further. He stood there for a moment in the cool dim of the pantry, behind the canned peaches and the spare paper plates. He breathed once. He breathed again. His hands did not shake. He came out of the pantry with a different package of napkins, walked through the kitchen behind Denise and her mother, and neither of them turned around. He refilled the cups on the folding table in the living room. He carried a tray of food from the counter to the backyard. He smiled at her aunts. He fixed a leak in the outdoor spigot that her cousin mentioned in passing, because someone had to, and he happened to have the right wrench in the truck. He drove home that evening with Denise quiet beside him, scrolling through her phone. The radio played something low. The streets of Charlotte rolled past, orange lit and ordinary. His face remained perfectly calm. "You were quiet today," she said, near the exit for their neighborhood. "Long week," he said. She went back to her phone. He watched the road. By the time he pulled into the driveway, he had already decided the first 3 things he needed to do. He parked beneath the Japanese maple, its leaves tapping lightly against the roof of the truck in the October wind. And he sat for a moment after Denise went inside. He picked up his phone and opened a contact he had not used for personal business in 2 years. He typed 4 words, "I need the folder." He went inside. He ate the leftovers from the party. He watched the news. He slept. But before he slept, he opened the browser on his personal laptop and searched 2 things: Raymond Chu, Charlotte area real estate, and joint marital asset transfer, North Carolina law. He named the folder he created that night simply November. The lawyer's name was Patricia Odom, and she had been practicing asset protection law in Charlotte for 26 years. She had an office on Trade Street that smelled like old paper and strong coffee, and she wore reading glasses on a gold chain that she touched when she was thinking. She had handled Marcus's estate and corporate structure since he was 32, and in 7 years, she had never seen him arrive without an appointment. He called on Monday. He was in her office by Wednesday. She read the documents he placed on her desk. She did not read them quickly, because Patricia Odom did not do anything quickly that was meant to be done carefully. When she looked up, her expression had not changed. "Tell me about the joint accounts," she said. He told her. He told her about the 3 years of joint tax filing. He told her what he had overheard. He told her the name Raymond Chu. He told her about the $80,000 figure Denise had mentioned, the phrase, "she's ready to sign off." Patricia removed her glasses, cleaned one lens with her sleeve, and put them back on. "The holding company assets are clean," she said. "They were never in marital property. That's what we designed. But if she's been moving money from joint accounts with the intent to transfer it to a third party before filing," she paused. "Then she has handed us something." "I know," Marcus said. "She doesn't know about Elaine Capital Group. She knows the name. She doesn't know what it holds." Patricia looked at him for a long moment. "Marcus, do you understand what happens when she finds out?" "I do," he said, "and you want to proceed. I want to know what I'm standing on before I take a single step. That's all." She nodded once, the way she nodded when she agreed with a strategy before she had fully articulated why. "I'll need 3 weeks. Forensic accountant. Asset freeze on the joint accounts. Nothing that alerts her. I want every transfer for the last 36 months. He stood. "I'll need the corporate disclosure documents current by the 14th. "They'll be ready," she said. "Marcus," she caught him at the door. He turned. "You built this right. The structure holds." He was quiet for a moment. "I know," he said. "That's why I'm calm. Real power operated in quiet rooms." That Friday he drove to Greensboro to see his uncle Leonard, who had known him since he was 8 years old, and had been the one to loan him $11,000 in 2007 to cover the first quarter's operations for what would eventually become Elaine Capital Group. Leonard was 71 now, retired from 30 years of civil engineering, living in a brick house with a vegetable garden he tended with the same precision he had once applied to bridge load calculations. They sat on the back porch with sweet tea while the October afternoon cooled around them, and Marcus told him what he had heard. Leonard listened without interrupting. He had that quality. He listened to the end of things before he spoke to any part of them. "The mother knew," Leonard said, when Marcus was done. "It sounds like it." Leonard set down his glass. He looked out at the garden. "Your grandmother always said Bernice was the kind of woman who raises daughters to fish in other men's ponds." He glanced at Marcus. "She meant it as a warning. The day you told us you were marrying Denise, she said it again." Marcus looked at his hands. "I remember. She also said you were the one man she raised who would know exactly what to do when the time came." Leonard picked up his glass again. "She was right about most things." Marcus nodded slowly. He would carry that sentence into the next several weeks like a level in his back pocket. Something to check himself against when he felt the pull toward anger. "I need one more thing," Marcus said. "Raymond Chu." Leonard's mouth tightened slightly. "I know that name. I thought you might." Leonard went inside and came back with a manila folder, worn at the corners, that he retrieved from a file box in the back bedroom. He laid it on the table between them. Inside was a printout from a county court records search and a stapled real estate transaction history. Raymond Chu had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2019. He had since rebuilt, aggressively, mostly through transactions involving properties purchased under LLCs with short operating histories. 2 of the properties in his current portfolio had been purchased within the past 18 months. One of them, Marcus saw, had been purchased using an escrow account in Denise's maiden name. He photographed each page with his phone, methodically, the way a man reads a blueprint. Not quickly, not slowly, but at the pace that ensured nothing was missed. "Some things," Leonard said quietly, "watching him work you don't find, you uncover. Because they were buried by someone who knew exactly what they were doing." Marcus closed the folder and handed it back. "Patricia will need this. I'll scan it and send it to her directly," Leonard said. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus moved through his regular life with the precision of a man who had designed the scaffolding around everything and was simply waiting for the structure to be ready for inspection. He came home each evening. He ate dinner. He asked about Denise's day. He watched her check her phone with the slightly tilted angle she had adopted sometime in the summer, and he noted it without comment. He replaced the bathroom faucet she had mentioned twice. He brought her coffee on Saturday morning without being asked. She thanked him with a distracted warmth that had become the prevailing weather of their marriage, and he received it with the same steady face he had always presented to her. On the Thursday before Thanksgiving, Patricia called. "The transfer total is $93,400, she said, across 22 transactions spanning 14 months. Beginning the same month, Raymond Chu purchased the Eastover property. Marcus was standing in the garage, hands on the walnut table, which was now finished, oiled, waiting. All documented? All documented. She made a mistake using the joint account for the first 7. After that, she opened a secondary account we might have missed if we weren't looking for it. We were looking." He ran his palm across the surface of the table. "And the property title?" "Her name and Chu's jointly held. Filed with Mecklenburg County 3 months ago." There was a short silence on the line. "Patricia," he said. "Yes, are we ready?" "We have been ready," she said, "since you walked into my office. Preparation is the work." He chose Thanksgiving. It was not cruelty. It was logic. Her entire family would be in one place, Bernice's house, the same house where he had stood in the pantry and heard the shape of what had been done to him. He had been invited without hesitation. He always had been. He was, to them, maintenance Marcus, useful, forgettable, present on schedule. He arrived with Denise at noon. He carried the peach cobbler her aunt had asked him to bring. He had made it himself, the previous afternoon, his grandmother's recipe, the one with the brown sugar crust. He set it on the counter and said good afternoon to everyone, and helped Bernice move the folding chairs without being asked. At 2 o'clock, when the plates were out and the living room was full, a silver sedan pulled up in front of the house, and Raymond Chu came to the door. Marcus had known he would. The text he had asked his assistant to send to Raymond, from a number Raymond did not have. Using language that suggested an urgent conversation with someone connected to his property portfolio, had been specific enough to bring him without raising alarm. Raymond was 45, compact, well-dressed in a way that cost more than it showed. He shook hands at the door with the practiced ease of a man who moved through rooms. He did not see Marcus immediately. Denise did. Her face changed in a single frame, from ordinary to frozen, and then she recovered. And the recovery itself told Marcus everything he needed to confirm about what she already knew. Patricia came in 30 seconds behind Raymond. She was carrying a portfolio and wearing the expression she wore in mediation rooms, not unkind, precisely, but final. Behind her came a man named Griffin, a forensic accountant who looked like a high school principal and had found more hidden money than most people knew existed. The room went quiet in the way rooms go quiet when something is recognized before it is named. Marcus pulled 2 chairs to the center of the living room. "I think we should sit," he said. He did not raise his voice. He never had. Patricia opened the portfolio on the coffee table. She laid out the bank records first, the joint account transactions, flagged and dated, 22 of them in a column down the left margin. Then the secondary account. Then the property filing with Mecklenburg County, bearing both names, Denise Elaine and Raymond Chu. Denise had not sat. She was standing near the kitchen doorway. Bernice appeared beside her, and then stopped moving, and then was very still. "I want to talk to you," Denise said. Her voice was even. She was good at even. "We are talking," Marcus said. "Alone, not in front of, not like this." Raymond had picked up one of the documents and set it back down. He was calculating. Marcus could see it in his face, the rapid, quiet arithmetic of a man running the math on his exposure. "Raymond," Patricia said pleasantly, "the property transfer filing is being challenged as fraudulent use of marital assets. We've shared documentation with Mecklenburg County. You may want to call your attorney." She smiled with the particular warmth of someone who had already won. "This evening, preferably, Marcus." Denise's voice had dropped to something careful and low. "Whatever you think is happening, I know what's happening." He said it without heat. "I've known for 6 weeks. I've spent 6 weeks making sure I know everything, not just enough." She looked at him, and something in her face that she could not quite control slipped sideways, an expression he had not seen on her before. Something that was not grief but was adjacent to it. Bernice stepped forward. "You should be ashamed," she said. "Bringing lawyers into this house, into my house." Denise's Aunt Claudette, who had been sitting in the corner chair nearest the door with her hands folded in her lap and her expression unreadable, looked up. "Bernice," Claudette said. Just the name. Just the one word. Bernice stopped. Claudette had that quality, the particular moral authority of the one person in a room who has earned the right to say nothing more than someone's name and have it land like a verdict. Marcus stood. He was not in a hurry. He gathered the 3 documents Patricia had already signed back into the portfolio, and he straightened his jacket. His good jacket, the charcoal wool one he wore to board meetings, the one Denise had never seen on him before today, and he looked at his wife for a long moment. "Elaine Capital Group," he said. "That's the company. Your mother's attorney will have heard of it by Monday morning, if he's diligent. Patricia will make sure of it." He paused. $93,000 over 14 months. "That's what you thought you were taking from me." He picked up the portfolio. "You took it from a company that generated $47 million in contracts last quarter. I want you to understand what it feels like to realize you were robbing the wrong house and didn't know it until the door was already locked behind you." He walked to the door. "You built for the wrong man," he said, without turning around. "I know how to build things that last." The peach cobbler was still on the counter. He left it. His grandmother would have wanted someone to eat it. 8 months passed, the way months do when a man is doing work he believes in, not quickly, not slowly, but with purpose, each one solid enough to stand on. Marcus moved into a loft downtown. While the house went through the legal process, Patricia navigated with the patient efficiency of someone who had seen this particular type of case many times, and had never yet lost one. He bought a smaller house in a neighborhood near the rail line, a brick bungalow with a detached garage and a backyard that needed everything. He built a raised garden bed first, then a pergola, then a tool bench he had been designing in his head for 3 years out of reclaimed oak from a demo project one of his site managers had flagged for him. The holding company's expansion into the Southeast Logistics Corridor closed in March. The contract figure was printed in a regional business journal that Marcus did not read and heard about through Griffin, who had stayed on as a consultant and had a habit of forwarding things he thought Marcus might want to see. Marcus thanked him and set the article aside. He had met Jade at a board dinner in February. She was a civil engineer with a firm that had bid on one of his infrastructure projects, and she had disagreed with his proposed timeline so directly and specifically. With the particular confidence of a woman who had done the math herself, that he had asked her to explain her reasoning over dinner, and she had said yes only after specifying that dinner meant 45 minutes and coffee, not a full evening. He had respected that so thoroughly that he had told her so. And she had laughed, a real laugh, not performed, and they had talked for 2 hours. She was not the center of what he was building. She was simply someone who was in the same general direction. What happened to Denise, he learned through Claudette, who called him once in April and told him calmly and without drama. The property with Raymond Chu had been seized as part of the civil proceeding. Raymond had been found liable for conspiracy to commit marital asset fraud and had relocated to Greenville, his license to operate real estate LLCs in North Carolina suspended for 5 years. Denise had moved back to her mother's house. She was working in marketing for a mid-tier firm downtown, the kind of work she had done before they met. Bernice had not spoken to Claudette since Thanksgiving. Marcus thanked Claudette. He meant it. He moved on. On a Saturday morning in May, he was in the garage when the light came through the window at the angle that makes the wood grain look like something living, and he was pressing a groove along the edge of a cedar plank for no particular reason except that he wanted to know what it felt like. And Jade came through the side door with 2 cups of coffee and set one on the corner of the workbench without interrupting, and sat on the stool by the wall and read something on her phone. He kept working. His grandmother had been right about most things. He was free. He was solvent. He was unbothered. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.